Hello and welcome back to Perspectives. On today's show, the grooming gang scandal has been a huge feature of recent shows, and it will be again today as we'll reveal the shocking truth of continuing cover-ups by the British state, but also some very uncomfortable truths for all of us. We'll show you some more videos of those caught by these vigilante gangs in recent times, which again reveal these rather uncomfortable truths. And talking of vigilantism, in Canada, after yet another Indian gang violence extortion attempt where gunfire featured rather heavily, the victim is now being investigated for fighting back. Stay tuned to find out more on that seemingly outrageous turn of events. We'll pay tribute to Jaggi again, who's just passed the depressing milestone of 3,000 days in arbitrary detention. And we'll have a small spiritual moment that I hope will just slightly lighten your day a little bit to forget about these rather heavy, miserable subjects. All this and more on today's show. And of course, we'll take a look at loads of your great comments that have filled up beneath the videos at the end of the show. So do stay tuned for that. And thank you as always for your loyal support. Right, let's get underway. And yes, the grooming gangs. This story is just running and running. There's a bit of sort of a slight update from what happened in Hounslow last week. This poor young girl who was groomed by an Afghan 34-year-old Muslim, and she was finally freed by the Sikh vigilantes, let's call them, basically those on the ground trying to sort of save young girls like this from the hands of these groomers. And you can see here, this is a picture of Mohan Singh. He's actually involved with Sikh Awareness, the Sikh Awareness Society, SAS as it's called. He's been heavily involved in a lot of these cases, and he's basically providing therapy and help to this girl. This is actually the back, apparently this is the head of, or the back of the head of the girl who's been freed. And of course, she's being helped and assisted by Mohan Singh, essentially to recover from her ordeal. And of course, in these situations, these girls have been, because they're so young, they're being groomed. They don't realise the trauma actually that they've gone through. They're just, for them, it's normal. But in fact, that trauma has become so deep inset into them that it does take literally years to quite often to recover from these sorts of situations and get back a normal perspective on what is right and wrong, etc. Now, police have said, apparently, that there is no indication of sexual offences that have occurred, but they are, as I say, keeping an open mind. And I'm just going to show you, My London is just a sort of a local London news outlet. They've done an article yesterday, or a couple of days ago about this, just following up on what happened. They said, they've actually spoken to the police. They said, police say there is currently no indication of sexual offences that have been committed after this situation, which is, I have to say, quite shocking in this situation. I don't know what's going on here. It does raise a lot of questions. I mean, clearly this girl from the age of 14 has been living with this guy, a 34-year-old man. That in any frame of mind, there is nothing normal about this. And if they're finding no indication of sexual offences, it does raise a lot of rather large questions. Police were called, as it said, to the property around 7 in the evening. That man was arrested. 34-year-old was arrested, the Afghan, and he was taken away. And he was arrested originally on suspicion of common assault in relation to an incident alleged to have taken place in December. He's since been released on bail. So again, it's slightly legal, convoluted information here. But the police did say, we understand this concern this incident has caused the local community, and officers are working to establish the full circumstances. So they are still investigating it, trying to gather intelligence. At this time, there is no indication of any sexual offences having been committed, but we're keeping it in mind. Would encourage anyone with information to come forward. In other words, if you do know anything, do go straight to the police. But again, it does raise these questions. What on earth is going on? Because certainly on the face of it, and we always need to be careful here, because in this country and in Western democracies, you are innocent until proven guilty. That is a fundamental foundation of our law. As it should always be the case, unless there is any evidence to say otherwise, you must be presumed to be innocent. So, on the face of it, we must say this guy is innocent until proven guilty, until there's evidence. But you have to say there's an awful lot of evidence that a 14-year-old living with a 34-year-old guy, well, you can read between the lines on that one and come to your own conclusions. So, now, Sikh groups, this is a Facebook post from a group called Sikh Beard. And they said Sikh groups have called out the Metropolitan Police, and this actually just is one of many things that have highlighted the fact that they're feeling slightly let down. That's an understatement. Slightly let down by the Metropolitan Police after another failed investigation into a grooming case involving a Sikh girl who's now currently under counselling with Mohan Singh of SAS. Mohan has been outspoken on the number of grooming cases they deal with, particularly with one community, always being at the centre of it, yes, we know who, stating that it's in the 100s every year, and police are continuing to fail these young girls. And of course, referring to the Rotherham scandal, these other towns, particularly in the north of England, the grooming scandals were most notorious, which countless men were grooming and abusing girls for over 10 years while authorities turned a blind eye. I think that's an understatement. It's been going back decades, more than over 10 years. So, of course, doing some research myself into this, it turns out that the police, and this accusation from Sikh Beard that once again it's the Metropolitan Police failing once again to protect girls and failing to properly investigate grooming cases, it brought up an interesting story from last year. Again, referring back to this local London outlet. London's mayor, a guy called Sadiq Khan, he himself is a Muslim. And he's been accused of, well, many things, but of course accused of protecting the Muslim population. There is now, I don't know if it's a majority, but certainly a very, very large percentage of London demographic now is Muslim. And the reason why Sadiq Khan is the mayor of London is because he is a Muslim put into power by the large Muslim vote that now dominates the London democratic landscape. So, of course, this large influx of Muslims we've had into the United Kingdom, as indeed across Europe, has created this situation where they are now electing, through our normal democratic process, their own Muslim representatives. And so now the mayor of London, the guy who has responsibility for many things about London, he is himself a Muslim. There are now accusations saying, you know, Mr. Mayor, what's going on in your community. You're turning a blind eye to it. This is an accusation, whether fair or otherwise, we don't know. But that is an accusation that is often made. My London reported this headline, "We don't want to create panic. West London grooming gang allegation not disclosed by council." So this failure to investigate properly by the Metropolitan Police, the police force of London, also has been, that accusation has been spread to the local council as well, the council that's responsible for London. And indeed, the local council, that one covering Hounslow, is not unfamiliar with this same situation. The very same council responsible for the same area where the girl was rescued last week has been accused in the past of likewise covering up similar situations. As this report said, Hounslow Council failed to disclose a 3-year police probe into an alleged West London grooming gang that was dropped last year, despite being asked if there were recent concerns in the borough. Now, in June last year, Hounslow councillor, on the other side, the opposition leader, he said, whether any concerns of this nature relating to group-based child sexual exploitations have been identified or raised in Hounslow in recent years. He asked the question, have there been any cases recently in Hounslow investigating group-based child sexual exploitation, in other words, grooming gangs? A Hounslow council officer assured him there are no concerns around organised group sexual exploitation of young people by men or harmers. So the council said, no. And when questioned officially, have there been any investigations? Are there any concerns that there is grooming going on in Hounslow? The council said, no, not at all. There have been no investigations, nothing at all. Yet, and the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, said himself, there are no reported cases or indication of these sorts of grooming gangs in the capital. Now, put this in the context of all the towns in the north, like Rotherham and Telford and all these other towns, that have known cases, proven cases, and charges and sentences of Muslim grooming gangs occurring all across these all across these northern towns. Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, says, no, it's not happening in London. No, we don't have it in London. Really? The largest Muslim population in the country, and there is no report whatsoever of grooming gangs? Well, the My London news journalists, they asked every London borough about sexual grooming gangs. So they went around every borough, every area, region of London, and all their councils. And they asked the sort of same questions throughout last year. Most local authorities refused to answer. They said, oh, the cost of performing these checks to answer your questions on children's files, or because the information is not held. They said it's too costly to give you an answer, or because we don't have the information. I mean, again, talking about public accountability, massive fail. The London Borough of Hounslow did respond, as it turned out. Hounslow's response described as one historic case reported this year and one current grooming gang with an unknown number of children who are known to other local authorities. The second response, they said, responded twice. We are aware of one report of a sexual grooming gang that was investigated by the police and other boroughs between 2021 and 2024. So they actually did admit there at least were two. So they actually did, in that request then from My London, they actually then officially said, yes, they had to admit there have been two cases that we have had to investigate. So one of the councillors said his administration took the issue very seriously, that the alleged grooming gang case wasn't just Hounslow, it was multi-borough, adding later that behind the scenes there's a lot of work going on. So again, just how much truth are we getting here? He said that investigation was subsequently closed. We understand that no criminal charges were brought. A bit of a whitewash going on here. So there have been investigations, no charges brought. It reminds us of what's just happened just a few days ago in Hounslow. No charges brought. In a 2014 report that was titled Learning and Reflections from the Rotherham Experience of Child Sexual Exploitations, that's one of the northern towns, Hounslow Council's then head of safeguarding, somebody who's responsible for protecting the children in Hounslow, noted how issues in Rotherham were underplayed by senior social care managers, and reports were suppressed. So again, we talk about a cover-up, trying to hide the issue, bury the issue, because it's slightly embarrassing, isn't it? Hounslow's report also identified issues with its own child protection plans and risk assessments. In 2017, another report, My London, the news outlet, found reference to concerns by the police-led multi-agency sexual exploitation panel about a specific group of males grooming young girls. Again, we know who that specific group is. Police were said to be investigating the group and completing checks on children in a semi-independent accommodation. And a mayor's office for police and crime report from 2014-15 detailed another investigation, codenamed Operation Baker, involving care homes in Hillingdon, another borough, where 5 males were convicted of sex offences against 4 young girls, including for rape and threatening torture. So it's going on. It is clearly going on across London. Even one council of Hounslow was basically forced to admit, actually, yes, we have been investigating cases of grooming gangs. And all the other councils refused to answer. Oh, it's too costly to give you an answer. Oh, we don't keep those records, conveniently. And Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, no, we have no grooming gangs in London. Seriously? Let me remind you, the Sikh National Inquiry into rape and grooming gangs continues. Please get involved. If you, in the UK, if you know anybody in your community who has been affected by grooming in any form, it doesn't matter how small, please, they need your evidence. Our government in the UK is failing the Sikh community. It is not investigating properly. It is not doing anything about Muslim grooming gangs in this country to the extent it should be doing. It is not protecting our young girls, even boys. It is not protecting our children. The police clearly are turning a blind eye. The guys on the ground, the bobbies on the beat, the cops on the street, they know it's going on. They hate this fact. They are frustrated. It is the politicised management of the police that are clearly not interested in dealing with this. They want to hide it. They want to bury it. It's rather embarrassing, isn't it? It's rather a shameful thing because it affects our Muslim community. And we're not painting all Muslims with this, but it is an inherent part of the Islamic community here in the UK. And one wonders if it happens overseas. If you're in America and you've heard of these, let us know. We'd like to know more evidence. Is this happening across Europe? Is it happening in Australia and New Zealand in the Islamic communities? In other words, is it exclusive to the UK? I just find it very hard to believe it is exclusive in the UK. Anyway, back to the National Inquiry. This is the Sikh community once again having to do the work of the British government, having to do the work of the police, basically. It is having to prepare all the evidence so it can present it to the police and say, here is the evidence, you now cannot not do anything about it. You must do something about it because we're going to do all the work for you. In other words, leave the police no choice but to act. So as they said, this is an appeal. You don't need to be a victim yourself to contribute. Men and women can provide information. It says, please think back carefully. You may remember, going back to even when you were young, were you a victim from your school or college? Do you know somebody who was a victim at school or college when you were a child, or your friends when they were children? It could be a friend, it could be a relative. Do you remember the perpetrators? Do you remember any accusations, any nicknames that we used at the time? Any rumours, whatever. It's all information that helps. Even little snippets of information put together can paint a picture. This is how the intelligence agencies work. They take a million little pieces of information and put them together, and together they paint that whole picture. Do you remember any perpetrators' cars, the makes and the models, who picked up girls outside schools and colleges, nightclubs, things like that? As it says, small details matter. Your information could help build evidence. We need all that information. Please report it. And of course, it will all be held confidentially. So there's a QR code on there if you want to use that. Otherwise, please go to the link, which is www.sikhinquiry.co.uk. Please, all your families and friends of the community, if you know anything, you've heard of anything, however small, doesn't matter, please. They need that evidence. They can't do anything about it until they have the evidence. Now, I said in the intro about uncomfortable truths. Right, yeah. And I have to say, thanks to many of my commenters who made this point as well. Grooming of children has occurred regularly, sadly, in the UK, tragically, and it has been very highly profiled to be part of these Islamic grooming gangs. However, it's not just Islamic grooming gangs who are involved in this. Human beings, clearly there is a very small section of humanity through whatever genetic deviation or whatever. At the end of the day, these guys can't help it. They are genetically driven by their genes to do this evil thing. It is only in the moral framework of civilized society that we call it evil. They are just human beings at the end of the day. I'm not defending them. I'm just explaining why these people do it. It is an inherent part of humanity. So, of course, therefore, by definition, just through sheer scientific fact, these guys don't just exist in the Islamic community. They exist in all communities, sadly. The white community, we have our own paedophiles. Every community has their paedophiles. These children are assaulted by men from all communities at the end of the day. That is the sad, tragic, uncomfortable fact. There are two elements to this. There is a cultural driver and there is a genetic driver, for want of a better word. The cultural driver is why there are Islamic grooming gangs. Because for some reason, whatever cultural reason, in that extreme end, I'm being very careful with my words here, the extreme end of Islam, for whatever reason, that these grooming gangs think it's okay to groom young girls. So there is a combination of their genetics that makes them have this desire to do it, but there is also a cultural backup to it. There is a cultural justification somehow that they believe in their religion. It is okay to do this. So there is a combination of both culture and genes. Now, there are sadly, other communities that are responsible for this. The Times reported that the Ministry of Justice here in the UK reveals all foreign nationals, but particularly Indians, are the most prolific sex offenders in the UK. Uncomfortable fact number one. It revealed that between 2021 and 2024, new statistics showed a huge increase in sexual assaults and convictions. Of these, 88% were Hindus, 12% were Sikhs. As I said, all communities are guilty of this in a small end. Now, we know, and I've seen across social media, accusations levelled against, and even videos of Sikhs being arrested for this. Sadly, uncomfortable truth, yes, they all live amongst us. They're in all our communities. They are in our white communities. They're in Sikh communities. Sorry to say, it's a fact. But again, that is less culturally driven, more genetically driven. As I said, there are two main factors behind this. But interestingly, Hindus, a large percentage of Hindus. Now, this again is where I think the cultural factor is a big issue. Because, of course, as I report regularly, in India, women are treated as second, third class citizens. There is a cultural driver in India where Hindus are culturally educated that it's okay to treat women as submissive creatures. Women are there to be used and abused. That is why India has a terrible statistic for sex crimes. There are gang rapes on a regular basis. Dalit women are raped on an almost, I think it's one rape every 9 minutes or something in India. That is indicative and symptomatic of a cultural problem in India. And of course, the majority, 80-something% Hindus. So clearly, amongst the Hindu culture, and again, I'm not painting all Hindus with this fact, but there is, generally speaking, a cultural treatment of women amongst the Hindu culture that is not acceptable. That certainly in our eyes, in Western democracies, in our civilized societies where we treat women as equals, and Sikhs culturally treat women as equal as a fundamental part of their faith. That's why it is not cultural in Sikhi. We know that for a fact. It is only genetically driven, sadly. But certainly, and the statistics don't lie, the statistics prove here that the Sikh community, it's very small, is it 12% were Sikhs. Again, that's probably only genetically driven. The fact that they happen to be Sikhs is almost irrelevant. It's clearly they have a genetic drive to be a paedophile. But 88% were Hindus. That implies it's not just genetics. There is a cultural factor here as well that is encouraging men to attack, to assault young women, to rape young girls. They feel that they are culturally justified to do it. And this, again, just comes back simply from their upbringing, their culture. That is the problem. And it has been, I'll talk about cover-ups. And of course, the facts that these are coming out, that it's not just, obviously, the Islamic community, it is coming from all communities. The biggest problem we have is actually, ironically, statistics. And it was referred to in some of those My London reports, is that these councils don't keep statistics. Why not? It's probably deliberate because they don't want to know. There are some, as I said, uncomfortable truths. We do know that certain communities, certain religious communities, have a disproportionately high number of paedophiles in their communities. Again, driven by both genetics, but also culture. There is a cultural driver here. And this is the fact they don't want to admit. They don't want to admit it, firstly because they will accuse of being racist, secondly because it is slightly embarrassing for now our rising Islamic stars like Sadiq Khan. They are a bit embarrassed about their cultural background, that their culture, their religious community is actually contains a large number of these people. So, of course, everybody in officialdom is doing their level best, as has been brought out regularly, including here Baroness Casey, who highlighted this fact, that there is an agenda to hide the truth, because the truth is embarrassing, the truth is uncomfortable, the truth is also generating right-wing extremism, but not just right-wing extremism, it's actually generating a huge upswing of anti-Islamic hatred, anti-ethnic hatred, which of course the Sikh community, you guys know full well. How often are you guys mistaken for Muslims? When there is a right-wing backlash, when there are angry right-wingers out there who are looking for a target, they see a Sikh, think, oh, he's one of them, isn't he? Or she's one of them. So they get attacked. Look at those 2 rapes in Oldham. Again, hate crimes driven by this very thing. So this is why, one of the factors why these statistics are deliberately either not being collected in the first place, or when they are collected, they're buried, they're hidden, they're not publicised, because they know people will get angry. Because the truth, unfortunately, is uncomfortable. The truth will make ordinary, decent, civilised people angry. So, as Baroness Casey reported, there's a 4-fold rise in missing ethnicity data. And as a result of this, it's damaging public trust and it's hindering the fight against exploitation. The number of criminals committing child sexual offences whose ethnicity is not being recorded has risen by a factor of 4, despite warnings it will fuel another crisis, as reported by The Times. This is one of our main news outlets here in the UK. Ministry of Justice data analysed by The Times revealed that last year more than 1,000 offenders who were sentenced for child sex offences did not have their ethnicities recorded. Let me show you a graph that shows this. This is the number of sentencings for child sexual offences when their ethnicity was unknown. So you can see that over the last few years, how these statistics have proven that their ethnicity has not been recorded. Every time there's been a sentencing for a child sexual offence, look how many now are not recording the ethnicity. The question is why? Why didn't they record the ethnicity? We know why. I've just explained it. We all know why they don't want the truth to come out. So there you go. Now I'm going to play a video for you now. This is an interesting video. As part of the sort of the research, I came across all sorts of uncomfortable, and the whole subject it's a horrible subject. It's a very uncomfortable, disturbing subject. It really is. It's traumatic. I mean, God knows how traumatic it is for these poor girls who are the victims of this. But it's also traumatic for anybody getting involved. Even the police force, who actually, the guys on the ground, the investigators, who have to investigate these awful crimes, even they are quite often treated for mental health issues because they are exposed to some of the most awful crimes that humanity can commit against another human being. They have to see videos and evidence of these things. It always bring tears to my eyes even thinking about this. But these guys who are involved in this, again, I talk about there are cultural issues and there are genetic issues. Many of these men are driven just purely by genetics. They have this sexual deviation that they just can't help themselves. This is, again, another uncomfortable truth about this whole subject matter. Many of these men can't help it. That is just the way they are made. That is their sexual deviation. We're all different. We all have whatever that drives us, that motivates us in that department. And sadly, there is a small section of humanity that is driven by this. And this is the challenge for our law enforcement and for our rehabilitation. How on earth do you rehabilitate somebody like this? We have things like chemical castration, where literally we remove chemically their ability to both desire and have sex. That does seem to work. We have extreme nations on this planet who have a very simple answer to this. They chop off their bits, to put it mildly, which means that they literally then are physically incapable of ever committing the crime again, etc. So there are ways of rehabilitation, but ultimately the fact is these men, and you'll see from these videos, these men are devastated when they're caught. It doesn't forgive them the crime. But anyway, these are a few examples that I want to play you. Of well done to the vigilante groups. It's the vigilante groups who've gone out to trap these men. And I have to say, well done to these guys. They're not just from the Sikh community. Well done to SAS, Sikh Youth UK, all these groups. Well done, Shir Punjab. They are on the ground doing things like this. There are also many white groups as well. Basically, there is a whole army out there of vigilantes who are doing the police's work for them. And again, I'm not blaming the police for that. It's the guys on the ground who do want to be doing this work themselves. But anyway, I want to play you this video. Have a look at these. Here are some guys who've been trapped by these vigilante groups. Well done to them. And this will gives you a flavour of just what's going on with the vigilante groups.
I'm sorry.
And I just want to add in here, don't forget, this is a Hindu. And a lot of these videos are to highlight the fact these are Indians, Hindus on the main, all right? So again, it's not just the Islamic community. This is to highlight the fact it's an Indian problem as well.
If she would have turned up and met the likes of you, she'd have been saying, no, please, please. She'd have been saying, please, and all. Is that your picture you've been using? Is that a picture of you? Is that your picture? Is that your picture? Right, okay. It's a simple question, isn't it? It's a yes or no answer.
So how old are you? Are you 33 like you say you are?
If he's 33, I'm 18.
Don't hurt me, please.
So, next one.
You dirty fucking bastard. Stop looking at him, he ain't gonna fucking help.
Now on this one, I couldn't play you the whole video because the accusations he was made about what he'd been doing to girls, it literally brought tears to my eyes. And again, I've cut that from this video. It is absolutely, I'm speechless. Anyway, just to give you a flavour, what this guy did to young girls is just beyond anything I could even talk about. But anyway, this guy was guilty of that.
No, what? Why are you telling a child?
I didn't.
Did it stutter?
No, I haven't got a stutter.
No, well, come on then. So why are you telling a child, dickhead?
And again, I won't tell you what he was telling a child to do.
I haven't made her.
Huh?
I haven't made her.
No, but you're coming to meet her now, though.
Yeah.
To do what with her?
It's just
You have raped the mind of a child.
I'm sorry for that. I'm really, really sorry for that. I didn't know.
You didn't know because she told you she was at school. She told you she was doing a school homework. She told you she was 14.
I haven't seen her, please.
I know you haven't seen her.
Crocodile tears, look.
But this is online grooming, is what you've done to this child. You have groomed this child.
So that was a few examples of stings, as they're called, by the vigilante groups who caught these guys. Basically, they've caught them online, and the way they operate, they basically pretend to be young girls online, and then these groomers are saying, "Oh, let's meet up," and then they meet up to be faced with this group of vigilantes. And of course, you can see the sort of devastation as they realise they're being caught. Now. This is a report from the Indian Express. This is an Indian news outlet. Again, it's good, actually, ironically, that India is actually turning its own media on its own community for these crimes. I mean, we criticise the Godi media on a daily basis, but at least they had the decency and civilised journalist ethos to look at their own community, the Hindu community in the UK. And they did this report, and I just want to play just a minute of this report, which again looks at the statistics. And as I said, it's not just Islamic grooming gangs. Hindus are just as equally guilty.
In a shocking revelation, new official data shows that Indian nationals in the United Kingdom have recorded the highest surge in sexual offence convictions among all foreign nationals over the last 4 years. In this video, we break down the numbers and what they mean. According to the UK's Ministry of Justice data, convictions of Indian nationals for sexual offences have risen by a staggering 257% between 2021 and 2024. The numbers went from 28 convictions in 2021 to at least 100 in 2024. This is the steepest rise among foreign nationals in the UK, with Nigerians seeing a 166% increase and Iraqis 160% over the same period. The Ministry of Justice clarified that these figures refer to sentencing occasions rather than the total number of individual offenders. Importantly, sexual offenses include serious crimes such as rapes. Beyond sexual offenses, Indian nationals have also seen the third highest increase in serious offense convictions among all foreign nationalities in the UK. Between 2021 and 2024, convictions rose 115%. Climbing from 273 cases to 588 cases. Only Egyptians and Algerians recorded higher percentage increases in this category. The Ministry of Justice data shows that sexual offense convictions among all foreign nationals rose 62% over the last 4 years. Foreign nationals accounted for 1 in 7 sexual offense convictions in the UK last year, while convictions among British nationals rose by nearly 39% during the same period. The figures come against the backdrop of record migration to the UK. The Moj data, which was obtained from the police national computer by the think tank Centre for Migration Control, coincides with rising concerns over irregular migration and crime statistics.
So, well, I mean, that video speaks for itself, but it does also bring in this other element of migration. And it's interesting, it did say that, Indians were the third highest instigator of sex crimes against girls in the UK. Interestingly, though, it was only exceeded by Algerians and Egyptians, both Muslim countries. So again, you can see why the focus is on the Islamic grooming gangs. Essentially, it does seem to appear to primarily be driven by Islamic grooming gangs. But it does bring in that whole debate about immigration. And this, again, is what's driving the right-wing issue here in the UK, is that people are just sick, not just of so many people pouring into the UK, but it's the nature of people that come into the UK. Clearly, as this report highlights, is that we're also importing into the UK. And this is the same in Europe, and actually the same to some degree in America, North America as a whole, is that many of the people who are migrating from these Islamic countries, it tends to be the detritus, the worst parts of those societies who are fleeing. They are the sex criminals who are coming to our countries, and they are raping our young girls, as these statistics are now proving. That is the problem. That is why people are getting angry in Europe, in the UK, even in Canada and the US. This is what's driving right-wing anger, justifiably so, because sadly, as the statistics prove, the sexual assaults are increasing massively because we are taking in sex offenders from these overseas communities. It's a fact. It's unavoidable. Anyway, so there you go. As I said, lots and lots of uncomfortable truths. This story, I have no doubt, will run and run. I hope that gives our audience a bit more information about what actually is going on the ground with these things. And well done to the groups who are fighting back, the vigilante groups who are basically doing the work of the police. They are doing such incredible work to protect our young girls and all our communities, but particularly well done to the Sikh groups, the Sikh vigilante groups, who are doing their absolute best at their own inconvenience, their own detriment. They are working so hard to protect our young girls in our society, whether they are themselves Sikhs or whatever. So, talking about vigilantism. As I said in the intro, an outrageous story. Thanks, James, for highlighting this one in Surrey, in BC. It turns out, how about this for a story? Surrey police in Canada say, so far this year, the city has seen 34 reported extortions and 7 extortion-related shots fired incidents. In other words, gunfire has been witnessed in 34 extortion attempts. Now, it turns out, just the other day, a person or persons inside a Surrey home where an extortion-related shooting took place on Saturday is now under investigation for allegedly returning fire. So it turns out, and they don't say specifically, they won't admit who the person is, and it is believed it is actually a Sikh, but it is likely that a Sikh who was being targeted and being attacked by these gangs is being shot at, presumably in another drive-by shooting, is actually returned fire in self-defence, is now being investigated for this. I mean, go figure. The residence was occupied at the time. No one was injured, but it happened at 8600 block of Galway Crescent near Bear Creek Park. But it happened at 2:20 a.m, so basically the middle of the night, the dead of night on Saturday morning. And they found a home damaged by gunfire. Now, the residents who are connected to a local business had been receiving threats for some time. And they did report these threats to the police. They said, look, we are being threatened. What did the police do? Well, clearly not enough. And in fact, the only thing that police seem to have done is they told Global News, who reported this, we do not condone vigilantism or anyone illegally using firearms or weapons of any kind. It puts the community at risk. And if you do, you will be the subject of a criminal investigation. I don't know why I'm laughing. I think I'm laughing in disbelief. Police have not released details about who was targeted in the latest shooting or whether the incident involved the Indo-Canadian community. As of Monday, there are 21 victims, 16 repeat victims, 34 reported extortions and 7 extortion-related shots fired incidents in Surrey alone since the beginning of the year, according to the police. So this is a regular occurrence. This is a real problem. And we have reported, and James particularly, when James was with us, he reported regularly about how the RCMP is bolstering up the local police forces, throwing a lot of resources at this. We know the Bishnoi gang has now been designated as a terrorist organisation, which basically means a lot of resources are now being poured into trying to target these gangs. However, when this poor guy, it might be a girl, but one assumes it's a guy, tried to defend himself at 2:20 a.m. when shots were fired at his home, he picked up his own gun, tried to return fire to protect himself. He's now under criminal investigation. So a warning to all you vigilantes out there, don't you dare defend yourself, just lie there and be shot, it appears to be the message. I'm laughing, and actually, to be a bit more serious about this, of course, the police actually have no choice. They cannot encourage vigilantism. It's the same right across North America and here in the UK. It's a familiar story. We've been here before, actually, where when the police fail to protect our society, people have no choice. Grooming gangs, case in point. We have no choice but to stand up and defend ourselves because we feel we're not being the state. If the state isn't doing it, basically we have no choice. If we want to stay alive or we want to protect ourselves, we've got to do it ourselves. And this is exactly what's happened here. This guy has picked up a gun to try and defend himself. I would do this. I'm sure most of us, if we had a gun in the house and somebody starts shooting at our house, you're going to pick up that gun and return fire to try and protect yourself. But the police, I have to say, I understand why they're saying this. You can't do this. You cannot go out there and form vigilante groups because then we end up in just anarchy, chaos. We'll just have groups, large groups of armed gangs just running around our streets, shooting up the streets. That's basically, they have no choice. They have to do this to maintain law and order. basically, this has to come down on the police. The police have to be the only ones who are there to run around the streets carrying guns because they are trained, they know how to do it, etc., etc. So there is that argument. The trouble is that this argument starts to fall apart when the police are not doing their job, when the public do not feel, and I talked about yesterday, this social contract, where the police are obliged under the social contract to protect us. We won't form vigilante gangs if you protect us. If you don't protect us, that social contract is breached. We will therefore have the right to pick up arms to defend ourselves. That's the argument. It's an argument that, there's no winner in that argument, but that is just the fact of the situation. Let me just play the video that came with this report, actually. It'll give you a little bit more background in it as well.
Community leaders have been warning for weeks a failure to curb Surrey's extortion violence epidemic could lead to people taking matters into their own hands. And on Saturday morning, that appears to have happened.
What did it sound like?
Bang, bang, it's like a bomb going off.
Kelly Baines lives nearby on Galway Crescent and was surprised to learn police are now investigating people in the targeted home for allegedly returning fire.
It was very terrifying. I mean, it still is.
Global News has learned the homeowner had been receiving extortion threats for weeks and had reported them to Surrey police.
We share everyone's frustrations, but that isn't meant to condone vigilantism or taking up arms. You are putting yourself at risk and you're putting your community at risk.
We've got to pivot on what is going on right now. Law enforcement has to bring back some credibility within the community to show that they can protect them. Because right now, nobody within the community feels that law enforcement will protect them.
Monday, no answer at the front door of the home, bullet holes still visible. We also went by a business connected to the homeowner, but again, no one was talking.
The victims were protecting themselves like they're entitled to here in the laws of Canada, and now they become suspects.
BC's public safety minister had nothing new to announce Monday, but did say the RCMP-led extortion task force will update the community Tuesday.
The government is in frequent and ongoing contact with the BC Extortion Task Force and police of jurisdiction, ensuring that they have all resources that they need.
I've heard the government say we've never had more police in Surrey than we do now. Then where are they? I just don't see that this government has any grip on the crisis that we're in.
Surrey police say criminal charges are possible against the person or persons who allegedly shot back at the criminals who got away. Jordan Armstrong, Global News.
Yeah, so you can sense the frustration amongst the population in Surrey. If the government won't protect us, the police clearly are failing us, we've got no choice. There you go. Right, okay, let's move on. And we're running out of time. Gosh, I'm going to flick through these. Jaggi, a sad milestone yesterday. 3,000 days in arbitrary detention, as the Facebook regularly posts up the updates. The 53rd trial hearing happened a couple of days ago in Patiala. He appeared via video link. One prosecution witness was fully cross-examined. Finally, somebody was cross-examined. One failed to attend. So the hearing has been adjourned. I mean, you could write this every day. Hearing has been adjourned to the 4th and 6th of February. For further prosecution witnesses. Justice delayed is justice denied. We will not forget, we will keep highlighting Jaggi's plight. It is absolutely unforgivable, but it is indicative. As a political prisoner of India, these are the games that the Indian government play. You cross them, you cross the so-called democratic government, you end up in prison indefinitely, basically forever, as a political prisoner. Indian democracy, Indian rule of law in action. This is the true face of Indian so-called rule of law and democracy. There you go. And a final note before we move on to our comments column. I came across, when I was researching the grooming gangs story, I came across this lovely post. It was Sikh Beard, who I did actually quote earlier on. They had a lovely post, and it just really struck a chord. I think this is very relevant to all of us, not just in Sikh community. I think all of us, in all communities. This is something that actually I've heard in many different contexts. Sometimes a closed door is the greatest blessing in disguise. In Sikhi, we believe in Hukam, the divine order. When things don't go according to our plan, it's because they're aligning with his plan, Waheguru's plan. Waheguruji sees the storms you cannot see and is protecting you from settling for less than your destiny. Trust the timing, trust the journey. This is a wonderful statement because basically, as it says, some things didn't work out because God refused to let you settle for smaller than what he promised. In other words, if events happen and you feel disappointed, sad, doors close on you, things don't happen as hoped or whatever, don't worry. It's all part of God's plan. It is all part of the universe. The universe is an extraordinarily wonderful, beautiful, complex thing, controlled by whichever God that you happen to believe in. In Sikhi, it is Waheguruji. It's part of the plan because, as there's an English phrase, as one door closes, another door opens. That plan, and I've seen this myself, this is why I think it resonates so deeply with me personally, is that things happen in your life and they seem so bad, they seem negative, they seem like disappointing, whatever. Well, that's a great shame that didn't happen. Or I didn't win this, or I didn't achieve that, or whatever. Quite often, it's because there's something bigger and better further down the road. So again, just want to take this moment just to pick up on this concept of Hukam, the divine order. Believe in the divine order, because Waheguruji knows better than us. In other words, if a door closes, don't worry, because there is a bigger plan in place. There are bigger plans for you as an individual, as a person in this universe. Just be patient. Believe in Hukam. So thank you for Sikh Beard for that little spiritual moment, which, as I say, did resonate. I hope it resonates with you. Let me know your thoughts on that. If you've got any stories yourself that this illustrates. I've got hundreds of my own. But anyway. Right, the clock is counting down, as it always does, very quickly. Let's move on to our comments column. Thank you, as always, to our wonderful audience. We've got loads of really long comments. I'm going to have to, sadly, just skip through a lot of these very quickly, but just bring out the salient points. Jaslene, one of our regulars. Hi, Jaslene. Jaslene runs a very good blog. Thank you, Jaslene, for always linking us in your blog. Jaslene always puts in very well thought out, very articulate comments. And Jaslene says, yeah, it's who's behind the grooming gangs. Again, it's not just Islam, the Islamic community. It's look at Jimmy Savile. He was a very famous celebrity here in the UK. He raised millions for charity. Everybody thought he was a wonderful character. Turns out he was our most worst serial paedophile in history. Go figure. Epstein, multi-billionaire, a paedophile. The grooming gangs. The reason why authorities don't react is that the elite establishment itself is the real clientele of such sordid setups. Yeah, in other words, those who partake in this. Look at the Epstein scandal. Some very high-profile individuals. I won't name them. I can't name most of them, but we can all suspect who many of them are, who were seen on Epstein's island. The trouble is, it's being buried because many of them, who actually would otherwise be in a position of power to reveal the truth, are involved in it. That's why it's being buried. They're looking away. They're looking the other way. We must all stand united, at least on this front, to put an end to this horribleness. Absolutely. We must remember that the fire which burns the neighbour's house today can also spread past our own threshold tomorrow. Sikhs standing up to injustice is no surprise, but for someone to recognise them for it is definitely refreshing. Well, again, that's what I'm here to recognise, the great work that the Sikh community has done to protect all of us, the vulnerable in society. Warship says, look, the simple answer is vote banks. The Muslims have delivered block votes to put Labour in power. This will spend the end of Labour. Yeah, I talked earlier in the grooming story. We have a large Muslim population now. It is a large, what's called a vote bank. In other words, it's a large part of the electorate who then vote people like Sadiq Khan into positions of power, who vote Muslim MPs into our Houses of Parliament. It's the same across all our communities, whether in North America, whatever. And it's actually something that we encourage in the Sikh community. The Sikh community is a vote bank. We must elect more Sikh MPs, more Sikh representatives, whether it's in the US or wherever. We need more. We need to use the democratic system to get our voices heard higher up. But sadly, this is what happens with the Labour Party. It was voted into power through, well, actually, ironically, through a lot of the Sikhs. The Sikh vote bank elected Labour. So did the Muslim vote bank as well. But as you rightly say, Warship, it will spell the end of Labour because Labour has betrayed us all, as it turns out. James enters the comments. Hello, James. Hope you're doing well. ProPix TV, that's James, my former co-host. Great episode. Well, bless you, James. Thanks for that. But stay safe. Again, one of our regular commenters. Thanks, James. Your work on Satluj and support of Khalistan freedom. Absolutely. Well done, James. Hope you're keeping well. Thanks for your comments. And do keep in touch. Our audience definitely miss you, without a doubt. This is an interesting comment. T-Man 2001. We don't look up to Singhs who were going to war, killing and dying for the white Mona man. They fought for them and left us with nothing. We don't even own our own rivers. Look at all the history and knowledge of Sikhs destroyed since then. Libraries burned, historic places burned, etc. So many women and children raped and tortured. So many boys and men killed. Sri Akalaji Sahai. So this is an interesting thought because I thought, okay, I mean, all communities are divided. The Sikh community is, generally speaking, united by Sikhi, but ultimately the Sikh community is divided into different parts, sections. We're all human beings at the end of the day. Every family, however happy, will have some disagreements, some divisions, and the same in the Sikhi. So I just assumed, okay, there is clearly a divide in the Sikh community on many issues. We don't all agree on the same issues exactly, so there are always going to be divisions. So I assumed, okay, this guy is basically saying, and I disagree with this, he's saying, look, we don't look up to Sikhs who fought with the British, who helped the British, the evil British, the British colonialists, etc. They fought in the British Army and therefore are equally as guilty of the crimes of colonialism, etc. No. I totally disagree with that. Sikhs are driven by seva. They are driven by this concept of service, serving humanity, fighting against oppression, etc., etc. That is what drives them. Sikhs are not guilty by aligning with the British Army. They align with the British Army for partly for their martial heritage. They were invited into the British Army. They make great soldiers. They are driven by just the need as a soldier to fight for what they believe in is good. But they are not guilty. It is the politicians basically are guilty of what you're accusing them. It's not Sikh politicians who are guilty of this. It's British politicians of all the crimes that you're accusing them of. So ultimately, I think your argument is wrong. However, interestingly, K. Singh says, written by Hindu. Good question. You see, maybe this actually isn't, after all, a division in the Sikh community. Maybe this isn't a Sikh. T-Man maybe isn't a Sikh saying we don't look up to other Sikhs, Singhs. Actually, maybe he's a Hindu. As K. Singh says, actually, this could be Hindu mischief to try and create division. Watch out for these people. I don't know, T-Man. Are you a Sikh? Could we believe you if you told us you were? I don't know. Ultimately, though, yeah, as K. Singh says, watch out, because things like this are deliberately written to divide our community, divide the Sikh community. And usually it's Hindutva, so watch out. Amrit Singh, British politicians have done injustice to Sikhs. Your father was in British India Army in the Second World War. My son joined in the mid-90s. Fantastic. Well done. Well done to your service. And you're absolutely right. Britain has not repaid the debt of honour. As I keep saying, this debt of honour exists. And the only way that the British establishment can repay that debt of honour to the Sikh community, who have served so wonderfully since 1849, is to give Sikhs Khalistan. Simple as that. K. Singh returns. Sikhism experienced its greatest growth under the British Empire. Yes to a British Sikh regiment. Yes, absolutely. We totally and utterly support the establishment of a British Sikh regiment. Now, interesting. Sikhism experienced its greatest growth under the British Empire. I don't think that's a causality. I don't think there's a cause and effect there. I don't think it was the growth of the British Empire that grew Sikhi. I think Sikhi just grew because of what it is. So it's an interesting link there. But ultimately, yes to a British Sikh regiment. Totally and utterly, we must fight for a British Sikh regiment. It would be the most wonderful thing that could happen. Kuldeep says, Sikhs have sacrificed enough for Britain, and all we've done in return is to betray Sikhs. Sikhs have integrated so well. Sikhs are educated, hardworking, low crime rates, they own businesses, they create jobs, they pay taxes, low benefit claiming. The gaslighting by the British is off the scale. It is absolutely Kuldeep. I could not support your comment more. So instead of worrying about how they can get Sikhs to continue to join the British, this is a story about the British Army, spend resources on the inquiries like, why aren't Sikhs joining the British Army? Actions, here's the important bit, actions speak louder than words. It's all very well praising Sikhs, saying Sikhs are wonderful. What are you doing about it? Doing the opposite actions. Yeah, the British government says, oh, we love our Sikh community, they're wonderful, but they're not doing anything to actually back up those words with results. Why aren't we protecting our Sikh community? Why aren't we encouraging Sikh regiments to form, etc., etc.? Yeah, exactly. No longer works with us. We've heard it all before, is what you say, Kuldeep, but we'll judge you by your actions. And the actions so far are failing miserably. Totally right. Absolutely, Kuldeep. Now, this is a long comment. How long have we got? We've got 6 minutes. Can we? I put at this comment. Thank you, TC. This comment is a perfect comment. It encapsulates so much of what we talk about. And I want to go through the points raised here. Sikhs in the military. Effective destruction of the legitimate Sikh Raj in the Punjab started it all off. Look, it was the British that destroyed the Sikh Empire, and you expect the Sikhs to repay you by joining the British Army. Well, actually, ironically, they did. But anyway, this continued alliance with India to suppress any Sikh uprising. British intelligence in the storming of Amritsar in 1984. Yeah, we colluded with the Indian state in Operation Blue Star. So again, another betrayal. Transnational repression. It goes on through history. Transnational repression, anti-Sikh hate crimes. Little mention of this in the public. I am the exception. Thank you, TC, for saying this. I'm the exception in the UK as a white British journalist. Politicians. Yeah, Bob Blackman, here you go, a Conservative MP. Politicians have used parliamentary privilege to refer to Sikhs' human rights efforts with words like Khalistani terrorists. Yes, Bob Blackman, amongst others, have referred to Sikh activists, Khalistani activists, as terrorists under parliamentary privilege. That means he can say it without any comeback. He can't be sued or anything for defamation or anything. So MPs have accused Sikh Khalistanis of being terrorists, etc. And likewise supporting the RSS. My research shows that we don't even have the assurance of where we stand in terms of security, identity, and what we stand for. We are duped. We're conned into voting for a government that promised this judge-led inquiry into 1984. Where is it? Exactly. Instead, trade takes precedence. Yeah, we're more happy to talk about trade deals than this promised inquiry into the 1984 involvement of the British government in Operation Blue Star. What about the infiltration of Hindutva into our businesses? Suspicious elimination of human rights Sikh activists. Avtar Singh Kanda, where is the inquiry, a judge-led inquiry into the probable murder by India of Avtar Singh Kanda, a Khalistani campaigner here in the UK? Little main media coverage over these matters. Well, a few exceptions that BBC at least have been trying. What happens if one of us is detained? How strongly will the UK fight to bring us back? Jagtar Singh Johal, a case in point. Doesn't seem like we're making any effort, the British government, to free Jagtar Singh Johal. There's a lot to address here to win the hearts and minds of Sikhs. Yes, you're absolutely right, TC. Why should the Sikh community trust the British government? At the moment, there's very little reason it should. I say this, even as a white guy. Why should? There is no evidence. There's no reason that the Sikh community here in the UK should actively support for the British government, particularly the Labour government, who made all these promises. We will offer you a judge-led inquiry into 1984. Where's that? We're 18 months plus into, it's nearly 2 years now in July, that we've had this Labour government. They've totally and utterly betrayed their promises to the Sikh community. Americans seem to grasp this as well. There's a lot to address here to win the hearts and minds, but America seems to grasp this, and slowly but surely. So America's actually realised that the power and the importance of their Sikh community. Canada sort of did under Trudeau, less so under Carney. But certainly here in the UK, we have betrayed our Sikh community beyond belief. As TC finishes off, we're doing a fantastic job in Saver. Yeah, this is my Saver, which I'm very honoured and happy to do. We really appreciate this. You are, however, literally the only English-speaking channel that's dedicated to Sikh-related matters. God bless you and James. Well, thank you, and likewise to you. We're doing it out of, as you rightly say, out of genuine conviction and affection for Sikhi. I do absolutely unapologetically and unashamedly believe in the concept of Sikhi. I'm not a Sikh myself, obviously, but the whole concept of Sikhi is why I do this job. It's not just because I'm paid not very much to do it, but I do it because I am motivated, because I think, as I often say, the Sikh community is, I have to say, one of our most prideful communities here in the UK. It is. I mean, if I wasn't a white guy, I'd definitely want to be a Sikh. And as AI says, if we had to run the world under one religion, what would it be? I would totally endorse the fact it should be Sikhi, because I totally align. Sikhi aligns with everything that is good about humanity, as I say, on a regular basis. This is why I do this job. And it does appear we are the only English-speaking channel that's dedicated to Sikh issues. I'm happy that is the case, because it means you're watching me, but we need more of you to watch me. But ultimately, it's not about me, it's not about us, it's not about Satluj. It is about getting these issues out there into the mainstream. It is about protecting our community. It is about not betraying. It is also a large element of guilt as a white British person. As I often say, this debt of honour that the British establishment the British nation owes to our Sikhs. The Sikhs have given so much to this nation. The Sikhs have given so much to Canada, to Europe, to North America, Australia, New Zealand, all our nations around the world. Sikhs have contributed so much. Have they been repaid? No, they haven't. And as I say, I will continue to fight for Khalistan because I believe that is the only fair and just compensation to repay the Sikh community for everything that they have contributed to Western democracy. Thank you, TC, for that comment. And rushing in to the final set, just on time, Avtar Singh says, yeah, this is the influx of drugs and, of course, the spread of potentially deliberate spread of HIV into Punjab. Probably using injections and other ways to extend HIV. It's genocide. It is. It's just another extension of yet another genocide against the Sikh community. We must keep highlighting the fact. Again, this is why there is only one solution. We know what that solution is. Narinderjit Singh Saini says, thanks for empowering by rendering important information. This is a key word, empowering. I'm empowering you guys, and vice versa, actually, by passing the truth around. If we all spread the truth amongst us, it empowers each of us. It gives us that ability to argue, to campaign, etc., out in publicly, confidently, knowledgeably. It is important that we get the truth out. You guys out there in the world need to spread the word. We need to get the truth out, particularly to those of you in Punjab and across India. We need more Indians to watch this channel to get that truth out because it will empower you to see the chains that bind you. Kewal Singh Tandy says, thanks, buddy. You're doing great. A pleasure. A job to educate public. Thanks again. Bless you and your team. No, bless you and the audience. Thank you. I can't do this show without you guys. So thank you. Do keep the comments coming in. Noah Crazy Magic says, thank you to the team. Scott and Pat. I don't know who Pat is, but thank you. I'll take that. A pleasure. Thanks for the comment. Cam KZ Hindutva is using all tools at its disposal to destroy Punjab. Indeed it is. That is why we must keep fighting. The only solution is, of course, Khalistan. Jaskarat Singh has the final word of the day. Waiguruji, Charlie Kala, Khalistan, Zindabad. Absolutely, I couldn't put it better myself. So thank you to all our correspondents. Thanks for all your comments. Do keep your comments coming in. Much appreciated. As I say, I can't do this show without you guys. So thanks for your loyalty. Thank you for your comments. Let me know what you'd like me to talk about. Send me an email, message@satellitv.com. That comes to me directly. If there's anything you'd like me to look at, talk about, whatever. If you've got any thoughts, opinions, or your own perspectives, either put them in the comments below. Again, it helps, it gives me feedback to what you guys are thinking, what you need to or would like to talk about. But likewise, if you don't want to put it in the public domain, message me directly. I do read all emails. Much appreciated. And thank you for those who have emailed me. But that is it for another day. Thanks so much for watching. God willing, I will see you again tomorrow. You have, of course, been watching Perspectives. I'll see you tomorrow.